Hello again. Welcome to this very special edition of the Guido Goes Off. I know I haven't done an episode in quite a while. I think about 3 weeks. But things are finally calming down. Um, Situations have gotten better in my real life. And my birthday just came around. It was, as I'm filming this, was yesterday. And so I thought, in lieu of actual physical gifts, you guys, people that I talk to, people that watch the show, I decided, you know what, I'm going to do a special birthday Q&A to answer some questions that people might have for me, and because I love interacting with other wrestling fans and just people in general. It's nice to talk to people, besides seeing what my cats are doing. Hi, Selena. And Selena has decided to drop by and help me out with this. So without further ado, I'm going to go into the first question. Okay, my first question comes from at the maniacal JC. His Twitter handle, as well as the Twitter handles of everyone else that sent me questions, is going to be down in the description below, so that if you guys want to talk and follow these people, you're more than welcome to. His question was, basically it was about the booking of Roman Reigns. JC is a huge Roman Reigns fan. And, he has wondered, I guess, my thoughts on how Roman Reigns is being booked. Okay, so, and I understand that there are, before I go any further into my thoughts on this question, I'm all for anything that gets people into wrestling. Any character whatsoever. He's a fan of Roman Reigns. A lot of people are fans of Roman Reigns. I'm on the fence about Roman Reigns personally. I do think he does a great. His work rate's improved, and he can carry a match. A lot better than he even did like 2 years ago. And and while this may upset some people, but I'm going to come. It's from that booking standpoint. I find, like, as far as like right now, the feud with Braun Strowman, it just seems to have the same dynamic as we had about 3 years ago between John Cena and Bray Wyatt. As we all know, Bray Wyatt, they're trying to push him as this monster heel, and they put him against John Cena, a very polarizing figure in wrestling at the time. And he still gets a fair share of boos even when he shows up today. So it's in that aspect that it makes no sense, because you just had Roman Reigns defeat and put an end to the career of The Undertaker. One of the most, the most beloved and respected figures in professional wrestling. You freaking monster. But, and then you're going right into this, reestablishing the feud with Braun Strowman, trying to make him a face again. Like I said, it's not helping Braun to get over as that monster heel. They call him the monster among men, so clearly he's supposed to be the heel. And then you got Roman Reigns, trying to come back, be all Superman. Dun, dun, dun. Sorry, I prefer Captain America. Yes, I know the best stuff, This is about protection, not punching the bejesus out of everything. For the most part. So, but yeah, I mean. But then I think back to, but in the grander scheme of things, I think back to something Jim Cornette said about Vince McMahon's theory on booking, chocolate and vanilla. You can, if basically, I've seen a lot of fantasy booking and what a lot of people would like to see, but in all reality, it seems to be people do the fantasy booking book for themselves. And when you're running, any promotion, be it a tiny little outlaw indie that draws maybe 20 people into somebody's backyard, or all the way up to WWE, you're booking to draw the biggest crowd you can. And um, to paraphrase Ric Flair, whether you like it or whether you don't, right now Roman Reigns is the best thing going today. He's and whether it's to see him kick ass or get his ass kicked, he's doing the two things that WWE wants. He puts butts in seats and he puts smiles on faces. Like I said, the booking right now doesn't necessarily make sense because, like I said, you just had Roman Reigns defeat The Undertaker, and now you're trying to establish him as a face again. And in that sense, I'm having trouble making sense of that because it doesn't seem to make sense. But yet, the end justifies the means. He put Roman Reigns does draw people to the events. And so, and you have to remember, whether we agree with Vince or not, as far as him doing this, the WWE is the most successful and most profitable professional wrestling entity on the globe, with a global reach. So it's kind of hard to argue, we may not like what he's doing, but what he does works. And so Vince is doing, in order to get Roman Reigns over, he's doing the best that you can. And in that aspect, yes, the booking is ingenious. And while, like I said, while not everyone agrees with it, it's working. Anyway, thanks, JC, for your question. Okay. Oh, crap, it's on. Okay. My next set of questions comes from Justin, good friend. He has his own great show on YouTube. If you actually go to the subscriptions of this site, of this channel, his channel's on there too, at WWE NXT guy. And yeah, easy for me to say, right? Okay, he asked me 3 questions. The first one, what was the year you became a wrestling fan? 1991. At least when I became interested in professional wrestling. I mean, I knew there was I knew it existed, but I wasn't really into it. I was into, your action figures and your comics and your cartoons and that sort of thing. But it was in 1991 with when The Undertaker started rising to prominence. And that's the thing. That's the thing it's always been for me for wrestling has been something different, something that grabs your attention because it's not really the norm in the industry. And The Undertaker was that for me. So, long short of it, 1991. Okay, his next question. What was your favorite company growing up? NWA, AWA, or WWF? Well, it was WWF because that was all I had access to. Growing up, I didn't have cable. So, I had to go with what I saw locally. And the only thing we had was at I think it was like 11 a.m. on Sunday morning. We had Superstars broadcast locally, and so that's where I found out about the wrestling. And then, like I said, growing up, like in 91, that's when we had, could see the Undertaker more. And so I didn't have cable, so I couldn't watch any of your NWA, WCW stuff on the Superstation, and I couldn't watch AWA because that was on ESPN, and like I said, I didn't have cable. I didn't personally have any expanded network channels until I actually moved out of the house, and then boss lady and I got satellite TV, and you know, and there was actually times while we were dating that I would go over to her house and watch wrestling, and I'd watch the wrestling, and she'd sit there and do some sewing. We were a fun couple. Wouldn't trade it for anything. But yeah, so to answer your question, it was WWF, but it was by default. You know, now that I have this stuff and I have more access to this, I'm actually watching more of the older stuff, and you know, and of course finding it wherever I can. And so there you go. It was, like I said, it was WWE by default. He did have a third question. Let me bring that up. His last question. Do you think Paige will be brought back to TV before SummerSlam, after SummerSlam, or not brought back in 2017? This is one of those. This is an interesting question. It's because everybody knows I'm a huge fan of Paige. You know, she's got that shelf right here below the Undertaker, and so yeah, my heart would love to see Paige come back, of course, as early as possible. But as we all know, there's a lot of factors riding on Paige's return. As we all know about, one, the leak. You know, you want to get that as far out of the public consciousness as you can, and because I mean, one, that's not her fault. That was not her fault. The whole thing was hacked, and someone with a god complex because they, you know, feel like crap, and you know their lives suck, and they don't want to, and you know, and they want to feel power over somebody, so they do these things. But yeah, so to kind of, you know, and I know that's, you know, it's never going to fully go away because, you know, once it's out there, and there's a cat on my back. Hey, Shanita. Yeah, North is sitting on the floor here, so there's kind of the floor is lava type of thing going on. Anyway, okay, so like I said, you got that factor of the leak. Second, her tenuous right now relationship with WWE. You know, because as far as her relationship with Del Rio and, well, what Del Rio has done in talking about WWE. I know it sounds like a lot of people think that she should be held accountable for that, but why should she be held accountable for what he says? But of that aspect as well, you know, it's unfortunate that he won't support her going back, which he keeps saying that he will, but you know, I could do a whole rant on the Del Rio situation and that, but like I said, the question was about Paige and when she's coming back. And of course, her injury. Okay, and the fourth being the wellness policy violations. Well, okay, so factoring in all those, around SummerSlam would be the optimum time. Because she'd be about, you know, she'd be within that 9 months of her recovery and some time to get back to training, go to the Performance Center, which you know she's going to have to go to the Performance Center to get evaluated. You know, and you also know that they ain't going to let Del Rio anywhere near those any WWE buildings. But in, like I said, my heart wants to say around SummerSlam, but my mind is telling me it could be more like Survivor Series. Um, and again, there needs to be a as a Stone Cold has said, and I've adopted the phrase, a come to Jesus meeting between WWE and Paige, and kind of a, all right, we do want you to work here, and honestly, they do want her. Vince and Triple H are very high on Paige as a worker, as a talent, as a very marketable commodity. And like I said, if there was any issues with the leak or her behavior or anything of that nature, she would have been fired by now. All WWE would have had to say is, we're releasing Paige for conduct detrimental to the company. That is a very wide umbrella of shit to cover. So, as I said, my heart's saying around SummerSlam, but my mind is telling me it'll be after SummerSlam. I do believe that we will see Paige in some capacity in WWE by the end of the year. Whether or not it's wrestling or, which I think would be awesome because they haven't really released any details about the women's tournament, having her as like a color analyst for that. I mean, seriously, she's wrestled most of the women on there. So her expertise, especially because from what I gather, one of the first people that WWE reached out to, I think I covered this in an earlier show, was Paige's mother, Saran Knight. So it would make sense as a segue to have Paige in some capacity, at least as far as that women's tournament is concerned, if Saran Knight is booked for it. So like I said, I would love to see her before SummerSlam, like if they're doing that tournament before SummerSlam or around SummerSlam, like give her a feud. Because Paige is one of the very few that doesn't need either of the women's titles. She shows up, she gets a pop, she works hard, she gets a pop. At the end of the match, she gets a pop because people just want. I think people really want to see her back in a WWE ring. They want to see her wrestling. They want to see her be entertaining. I know I take forever to answer these questions. So, like I said, before, my heart says somewhere around SummerSlam, but like I said, my mind is saying later on. Once again, Justin, thank you for these questions. And as I said earlier, follow his YouTube channel. It's in my subscriptions for this channel. And we're going to move on. Okay, my next question comes from Renee at Sky Song. I talked to this lady quite a bit about wrestling. We exchanged some funny memes and jokes and that. So she's got a very interesting question. If you could go back to any point in wrestling history, excluding what's going on currently, what era would you go to and why? Wow. Wow. That's the thing. I'm assuming I'm gonna. Well, personally, I'm gonna go back well before I started watching wrestling. My era would be like the 50s and 60s. As a lot of people know, part of my set is a poster of Vern Gagne. And like the 50s and 60s, really see the, mostly because I want to see like guys like Lou Thez and Bob Geigel and Bulldog Bob Brown and Edouard Carpentier and Vern Gagne. Watch those guys in their prime. Maybe even some Gorgeous George matches, because because a lot of people said it was a race between Gorgeous George and Milton Berle as to who sold the most televisions. So, like I said, some of those big names from like the past, and I mean like the way past. The 50s, the 60s, maybe even some of the 40s. Of course, also some of your classic German heels, guys like Baron von Raschke and Baron von Erich, von Erich of the Von Erich dynasty. And I just think it would be awesome to see some of that, and some of the great talents and great storytellers of that time. Again, thank you, Renee, for your question, and we're going to move on. Next question comes from John, at John Ritz 1390. I talked to him quite a bit. He's also part of, if you ever hear me mention VDM, he's a part of that too. Big Roman Reigns fan. We've had some differences as of late because Reigns been taken, go away. But anyway, he asked a very good question. It was something I tried to get to, but as I've said at the beginning of the show, life gets in the way. His question: what are your thoughts on Jinder getting a push and getting a title shot? Clearly, Selena's not impressed with Jinder. Okay, my thoughts on Jinder getting a push. The hell. Now, don't get me wrong. I am all for, SmackDown has been the land of opportunity, is how they keep advertising it, and they're not wrong. Guys on a lot of the talent on SmackDown is getting opportunities that they probably wouldn't get on Raw. And in this case, it's clear, Jinder Mahal, of course, uniting with the Shera brothers, formerly, the Bollywood boys, and is in the hunt and is now, the number one contender at Backlash for the WWE World Championship against Randy Orton. Oh, hi. My issue with this, it's much like an RKO. It just came out of nowhere. It just came out of nowhere. And, if we're going to do something like that, at least build Jinder up to where he's viable. I mean, like I said, it was kind of out of nowhere, and it just happened. And now here we are. We have Jinder Mahal at Backlash facing off against Randy Orton for the WWE World Championship. It's like I said, I wish they'd have built Jinder more if they were going to put him in this position. My issue is, I'm sure Jinder's very talented, but he's also kind of bland. He's got that generic, it's where the WWE's racism goes in, and they pigeonholed him into the I'm rich and I'm from India gimmick, which they've done multiple times. And, he's, like I said, it's just kind of out of nowhere. Very much like JBL, to be honest, getting put in the title picture there. But, if you can get it to work, I'm all for it. And it seems like, now that the House of Horrors matches is out of the way, which, I don't understand why that wasn't for the title. I mean, pretty much, it's just you had this great feud between him and Randy Orton, and then all of a sudden you're going to ship Bray off to Raw, which he's not happy about. And then you're just going to throw Jinder Mahal in. It's, like I said, it's something that doesn't make sense. Yeah, and maybe it might down the road, but if something comes out of this, and Jinder Mahal gets that, gets a more sustained run as, maybe even upper mid card, because I mean I know he's pretty much been everybody's bitch on Raw, which now Kurt Hawkins is going to be everybody's bitch on Raw, but still, like I said, it's it shows that SmackDown's the land of opportunity, and that you have a better shot of proving yourself on SmackDown than you do on Raw. And so that's my answer. It's you hope something's good for this, but right now you're just the heck. Yeah. All right, John. Thank you for your question. Okay, my last question comes from Rocky at Rocky Bea. I am hoping I pronounced that right. It of course will be in the description below. Great guy, supports a lot of great wrestling YouTube channels, and is doing his part also to help Blitz Wrestling get into the public consciousness. Great guy, loves wrestling, loves talking to people. All the things I'm all for. His question was, since the Hardy Boys are back in WWE, is it possible for them to break the New Day's tag title record of 483 days? First, anything's possible. I mean, they could happen. I mean, they are the Raw Tag Team Champions right now. And so, like I said, could happen. Will it? I'm doubtful. Mostly because it looks like they want to separate the Hardys, and WWE is trying extremely hard to get it to where they can use the Broken Hardy universe. Which, let's face facts, it made Matt Hardy one of the most marketable wrestlers in the last few years. And that's, and it's just been, wonderful and delightful. It's worked for him. I mean, a lot of people, thought he was crazy at first. I mean, myself personally, because I thought it was a bit crazy because, like I said, he was doing every Johnny Depp character at once. But it's working. He created it. He made it work, and I don't think anyone else can. And you could tell it's just coming back into that. Going into that game, it made him love his job again. And that's the thing. I think the old saying goes, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And so, getting a wrestler to the point with a gimmick that they just, you could tell, when they're having fun with it, and that flows into the fans, and then they get behind it because they like it, and it just became like the biggest thing ever. I mean, it's clearly one of the most successful things TNA ever did was get out of Matt Hardy's way. But, like I said, it's, you have Anthem trying to say, oh, we created this. And those, but even Vince has had to, for his most successful characters, has had to have that perfect mix of character and story and person to pull it off. I mean, you look at guys like, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, The Undertaker, Hulk Hogan, so the biggest names in WWE history, you need someone to pull that off. Because seriously, the Undertaker gimmick could have died on the vine by 1990, 1991, and then we'd be mentioning the Undertaker in the same breath as Mantar. But Mark Calloway kept that gimmick running for 27 years. I mean, he kept it running till literally his body was giving out. And that says a lot about, you know, the dedication of a wrestler to their gimmick. And with Matt Hardy with the broken gimmick, that shows, and it works, and it's a wonderful thing. I am really getting off topic. The answer is no, and the reason, and, you know, and like I said, it's not because, okay, you know, Demolition's no longer the top tag team because they're suing Vince, and you know, we got the New Day, yay, whatever. Because one, records are made to be broken. It's you know, every record is gonna be broken at some point. You know, but you know, you can't totally erase those people from the history books. I mean, you know, yes, Asuka has eclipsed Paige's reign as the longest reigning NXT Women's Champion, but you can't erase the fact that Paige was that champion and was the first NXT Women's Champion. You can't totally expunge that, because once it's in the minds of the fans, it's there forever and ever and ever. Amen. And like I said, I think the goal is to break up the Hardys, because Matt has been able to be successful with the broken gimmick, or even a reasonable facsimile of it. And Jeff Hardy's been successful because he's, you know, Jeff Hardy. So Rocky, to answer your question, no, it's probably not going to happen. I'm not saying it couldn't, but it's highly unlikely. Thank you again. Well, that's going to do it for this, for Guido's birthday Q&A. Yay, happy dance. Okay, again, thank you everybody for the questions. And, you know, I have a lot of fun answering these, because you guys give me a lot of questions I have to think about. And I love it. And, you know, of course, as always, I try to put forth a great show for you. With that being said, as always, please like this video, share it with your friends, and of course, if you haven't already, click that subscribe button. You know, my goal is now to get at least 50 subscribers by SummerSlam, so please, of course, tell your friends, tell your enemies, and tell the dog. Hey, if Two Paws has an Instagram account, your dog can have YouTube. Anyway, I'd like to also know your thoughts, and also, even if you have more questions for me, I don't mind answering questions at all. So you can always, if you have questions or comments or anything that comes to mind, let me, of course, know in the comment section below. And of course, you can always talk to me on my social media. Also, you know, and if there's a question, don't be afraid to use the hashtag #AskTheGuido. And I had a wonderful birthday. Thank you very much, everyone, for the birthday wishes. It was awesome. And hopefully, my personal life will settle down more, so that I can bring you some more shows. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of The Guido Goes Off. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go to the most reliable source of professional wrestling news. Is Adam Cole coming to WWE? Oh, that's an odd response. It simply says, I'm the Guido, and I think we're done here.